Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ricky V, and today we have episode number 17 of the Elite Fitness Podcast. And today we have the second part of the Matt Lane interview. In this interview, we get way more into drugs, into some of the industry gossip, and some of the legalities surrounding some of the drugs that guys are using now and buying apparently over the counter. So without further ado, here it is.
They're meant to make what you're doing better, but what you do sucks. So like just throwing in another cc or another 50 milligrams a day isn't going to help you at all if like you're like you said, you're lying about your diet, you're lying about your training. Like you know what I mean, you go to the gym for 2 hours and you talk for 45 minutes, like you were only there for an hour.
Yeah. Well, so you were around for the mid 2000s when we had all these pro hormones around, and you're obviously around now to see all these SARMs around the way. One thing I've noticed is when the pro hormones were out, that was the entry of a lot of guys into the lifestyle. The first time they got something, a PED that they could buy at a store or they could get shipped to their house using their credit card. And the pro hormones versus nowadays, the same things happening with SARMs. The pro hormones gave some guys some kind of fucked up side effects. On Superdrug, some guys nipple with lactate, different side effects of sleeplessness, a lot of different shit. Many guys quit. I ran across a ton of guys that quit halfway through their first bottle of Superdrug and never touched the stuff again. Flip now to today. A lot of guys are using SARMs and having no bad side effects from it. And that makes them stay in the game, stay in the lifestyle, and then they step up to steroids eventually. It seems that SARMs have become a bigger gateway into this lifestyle than the pros were because of such low side effects that guys are getting generally when they're entering
I
into the
definitely
lifestyle.
agree with that. And the fact that they're consistently so readily available probably exacerbates that. And because a lot of people advertise it as low side effects or no side effects at all, it does create this like gateway. I talk people out of it a lot. Like people ask me about it and I'm like, honestly, man, like unless you're willing to take that risk, like the thing, there's certain points, like certain people, I'm like, whatever, bro, do your own research, look it up. If it's something that you want to cross over, like fucking go for it. Like I think if it's something that you're willing to do, I don't have any negatives to say about it, as long as it's something you're willing to deal with, the potential side effects, like the risk associated with it. I get pissed off when it comes to young men. I really get irritated with people under the age of 21, 22, you know what I mean? And they're like, I hear it about 16-year-old kids, 18-year-old kids taking SARMs and stuff. And then, by the time they're 20, they're blasting gear. And I'm like, bud, you didn't even get hair on your hair's not even growing in yet. Like your beard's not even finished. Like maybe wait a little bit. Like, and I feel like it maybe with the ability for people to get them so readily available. I think anybody should be able to purchase them. I'm pretty libertarian in that aspect, that it's anybody's body. But I'm like, you're completely missing out on the journey, the struggle. And maybe that's why a lot of people are such pussies, because they're jumping into the PED side of things so quickly. And they're completely negating like the struggle. You know what I mean? Like I'm really happy that like I grew up poor. And like, I mean, I don't really fear like economic disaster because bro, I've lived in my car. Like I've been in, you know what I mean? Like, scenarios where
Yeah, I know what you're saying, man. Same here,
was
bro.
taking care of me. Like I've been on welfare as a kid, WIC checks, shit like that. So like it doesn't really bother me. I'll survive. But like that's what I mean by that is like you get into the gym and that 135, that 225 is real fucking heavy. And like you got to grind through, you got to dig deep. That's why I like when kids do sports, especially things like wrestling and soccer, because they're very tough endurance sports. Boxing, because it truly teaches you, bro, to sack up. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be difficult. I think everybody should have like an old man, you know what I mean, in the back of their head. The guy who used to train me in powerlifting, his name's Ron. I will forever be grateful for this dude. And a lot of people know the guy who owns the gym that I train out. His name's Mark Chalet. I remember the first time, like, and I came into this powerlifting gym like completely green, no idea. Like, I'd only ever seen like the guys pulling trucks on ESPN and shit as a kid, and I've always been interested in that. But I remember I was going to squat 500 for the first time, and I'm staring at it, and like and Mark comes over, and I mean, this dude has 20 world records, like one of the first people to ever deadlift over 900. You know what I mean? Like, he's a big boy, uh, my training partner Ron is like a 30 year plus trucker who used to be in like a motorcycle gang and shit. Like, and I remember I'm staring at this bar, it's 500 pounds on it, and I'm like nervous. And Mark goes, "What's your problem?" And I was like, "It's a lot of weight, man." He's like, "Don't be such a fucking pussy. I know women who can bench more than that." He's like, "What's the worst thing that can happen? You die. You have spotters. You'll be fine." He's like, "Go down, stand up." And I was like, "All right." Like,
it's a good way to reset your mindset. Yeah, that's a good way to reset your mindset.
He tells me to stand up. I stand up. It's the first time I squatted 500. And now like 500 is a warm up. You know what I mean? So that like old man that sits in the back of your head and tells you, you know what I mean? Like, get up. Like, you got 3 more. But I think everybody should experience that. I think it's a damn shame when
It helps build that discipline too if you have a good coach there. And if you're if you're going to do something anyway, you only need a coach to be on your shit for a couple of years, and that's enough to last you a lifetime.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like that old man's voice will never leave my brain. You know what I mean? Like that.
Same here, man. I've had plenty of coaches, and I'd say the same thing, brother.
Mhm.
Those teachings, those lessons, I hear those guys when I feel like giving up sometimes, because it happens. It crosses your mind. You just don't fucking do it.
Yeah, and it's a shame, like, well, not to get like political or anything like that, but it's a shame what's happening in the world, because I feel like that I grew up without a dad. My dad left when I was 5. You know, he's an alcoholic. You know what I mean? Like, and he didn't. I would nobody. I didn't have a male role model, and that patriarchal like over, that watches over you. That idea that like I always think about, like, you know what I mean? That old man that would just tell you the right thing to do. You know what I mean? That would like tell you to sack up. You know what I mean? Like, I always think about like you know what I mean? Just like that dude that's been doing his job for 30 years, and he's just got grit. Like, and I just feel bad, because I feel like a lot of people are gonna, I don't know what happens to that. You know what I mean? That old head training aspect of like the Dorian Yates, the blood and guts, like dudes like that. Like, is that still going to be around? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
this new
what
generation
happens? Like,
this new
we
generation is
just keep making
losing a lot of that.
new categories in bodybuilding? Do we just keep making, you know what I mean, new rules and stuff to fit in everybody, or is it, or do we continue with blood and guts? Like, I don't know, man. It's just, I think about stuff like that sometimes, and I'm like, you know what I mean, what happens to the generation of meatbags after us? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Are we going to shape that group of people, and does that get watered down along the way?
I think with social and Instagram being such a motivation for people to get in shape to show themselves off, we're definitely going to this our section is going to continue to grow, and this industry is going to continue to grow. I think, although there's a lot of talk out there about not conforming to beauty standards and accepting yourself and all this shit, and let me tell you, uh, girl in good shape, guy in good shape, post some pictures, still gets a ton of likes and shares. And we still like seeing someone that looks like that, because it's a shit ton of hard work that goes behind it. I think the same thing that's kind of ruining a little bit of things is also the same thing that's going to motivate to keep some of these things the same. At least I think. I mean, I know a lot of more people now that are concerned about their weight and the way they look because of social and look, even if they don't post a lot of pictures when they go to a party, when they go to with their family, someone's going to put pictures up of them, and people are really concerned nowadays with the way they look, maybe more than ages ago. I don't know. It's just been kind of my opinion, but I know what you're saying. because I mean, I'm straddling the fence. You know, I'm not quite a millennial. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I'm at that age where I could be. But man, listen, you know, only first place you get a trophy, and
yeah,
the world is the way it is, and fuck your feelings. You know, the world is the way it is, and champions adjust. That's that's the way I feel about it, and a lot of these new kids don't feel about it that way. And I do think you are right. I think they're just going to keep adding categories, and there's going to be way more leagues, and you're going to see a ton of people with pro cards now. Oh, there are already a shit ton of people with pro cards,
yeah,
at least way more than there used to be when I was a teenager. You know,
yeah.
having a pro card was meant something. Nowadays, man, there's just so many fucking pro cards.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. We're talking about SARMS a little bit earlier. It's a good line of conversation to go on because most of our listeners are really hardcore guys, and what you're offering now is very important because many guys are thinking about opening their own stores, opening their own gyms, and it helps to know some of the logistics and mindsets that go along with it. Now, we're talking about SARMs, and this is the kind of stuff guys really like discussing and really like
Mhm.
me to get on this podcast and hear. So, um, you know, we spoken off air about this a little bit, and you and I both are on the agreement that these SARMs are going to go away. Like, people, they're going to get banned now. Do you think that they're going to be scheduled same way that steroids are scheduled, or do you think that they're just going to do like a soft ban, just go after people selectively? What do you think is going to be the way that the gov is going to handle SARMs? Because it seems like they're getting to a point where they're going to do something about it. What would you guess would be their next step with it?
I firmly believe they will be scheduled. Um, because it's not like the reason that like pot is becoming legal is because they gave these businesses time to buy farmland, to get licensing, to create legislation, to make it harder for everyday people to grow, produce, manufacture, and sell weed. It's difficult. In Pennsylvania, man, it's a $250,000 permit application. Not even for the permit, just the application to potentially get a license to sell weed in the state of Pennsylvania is $250,000. Bro, you ain't starting that without some serious equity. Um, and I think that because our PEDs and stuff have such a negative portrayal um, in, in the general population, that and the fact that pharmaceutical companies are so rooted in the ability to manufacture, produce, and patent these ingredients like ostarine, ligandrol.
Yeah,
Those
weed
already
doesn't have a
exist.
patent. That's
Yeah,
one of the main
but
reasons.
ostarine, the brand name, ligandrol, brand name, those are, I think, ligandrol is owned by Viking Pharmaceuticals.
Now, do you
Like,
think that's why I maybe disagree that they'll be scheduled, because these pharmaceutical companies want them out in the world eventually anyway, and it's just a different pad that your doctor has to use to prescribe you something that's scheduled versus something that is not. You know, it's a
yeah,
different pad that he has to use to prescribe you Novadex or testosterone or Romacin, even and
yeah.
get prescribe a Romacin. It's different. It's a completely different color pad that he's got to fill out. So that's why I doubt that they'll be scheduled the way hard drugs are. What do you think to that?
I would say that my personal meters, I think they would, because I'm surprised they haven't already. Honestly, like,
Because
I
one
mean,
thing,
they've
one thing
put
to keep in
forth the
mind, one thing to
legislation
keep
two
in mind
different
is,
times.
don't mean to
Two
cut
different.
you off, but one thing to keep in mind is this, brother. I mean to cut you off. When all these steroids became illegal in the early '90s, uh,
Mm,
the patent on those had already expired. You know, they get a certain amount of years, and then this drug, it can be generic and put out there generic by companies that don't own a patent. I think when the steroids became illegal, all those steroids that were in the legislature, the patents were done and over with, you know, because the companies that had put them out had already had that time. Now, as far as SARMs go, these companies haven't had the time to make their money on it. I doubt that they're pushing the gov to schedule these drugs that they plan to make a ton of money on. What do you think about that?
I mean, that'd be cool. Personally, I don't think any PED like should be illegal. I'm again pretty libertarian with my ideology when it comes to any substance, drugs of any kind. I believe should be available for anybody. It actually improves the quality, um, and it creates a free market area. I can get into that if you want. Why I believe that actually is true. Um, but I mean, if they I would assume just on my negative portrayal of how the system works, that they would schedule them just for an ability to take people's Fourth Amendment or violate their Fourth Amendment rights and take their property. I mean, you see it all the time. I mean, they pretty much are like banned.
Oh, they're putting motherfuckers in jail now for SARMs.
Yeah, I mean, like
jail right now for SARMs. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I know 3 manufacturers in the last 2 years. One guy, $2 million fine. Another guy, $1 million.
If you if these are
public, they're doing federal time for it.
If these are public records, and the articles are out there, don't be afraid to mention names and brands, because there's a shit ton of articles already about these guys if if they pleaded and they're going in. What's the most time you've seen somebody do for SARMs for selling SARMs so far?
I don't think I saw anybody do time. I think all of what they did was they took their shit.
Yeah, they surrender a bunch of money. I read a ton of articles where guys are surrendering
like
millions of dollars.
Like the dude from MedFit, like he's not in jail. They took a bunch of money. The dude from the two guys from Texas, I forget their fucking name. One's name was Brett. And I mean, they took all their money. I don't think any of them did jail time. I know one guy got house arrest, another guy got house arrest, but they lost millions of dollars. Now, how much did they keep? I know a guy up in Pennsylvania. Now, the only time I've seen people do jail time was, weirdly enough, for Superdraw. But Superdraw's scheduled, right?
Yes, Superdraw scheduled. Matter of fact, Superdraw got scheduled a full year, I believe, before everything else did. I think the biggest ban on pro hormones came in 2014, and I think they got to Superdraw like 2013, 2012 because it was just so popular.
Yeah, because I know a dude that did. He it was about 5 hours from me, northern Pennsylvania. He got clipped for producing Superdraw tablets for a company overseas. So he got exporting charges. I mean, he got ripped apart. And I mean, he was making, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, came out of it with nothing because he did that. But as far as SARMs go, it looks like for the most part, they just take all your stuff, which is equally terrible. You know, you tell me I can do a year in jail and I can keep all my money, or I can, you can take everything and I'd be free. I'd be like, well, how much money are we talking? You know what I mean?
How much?
Then, you know what I mean? So it's not that bad. You tell me I can sit for a year, but I get to keep $2 million. You know what I mean? I got visitation. You know, it's not that long.
Oh, yeah, you're married. You could get conjugal. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck it. I'll be all right. Like, I look at it like that. Like, what's $1 million worth to you? And then, but the goal is to not get to that point in the first place, obviously. And I think what a lot of people do, and I agree with, is one point that I will agree with on the government. I don't agree with the government very often, but I will agree with the fact that, like, when people were slipping dietary, I don't agree with people slipping, like selling Rad 140, but it's fucking Superdrol. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with selling dietary supplements with a dietary supplement label on it, and there be Ostarine or Rad or YK or LGB in it. I don't agree with that. I think
that fucks up the market for the rest of us that have natural compliant supplements, because it throws a ton of more scrutiny on us from credit card processors, from enforcement, from just even public opinion makes all of us look bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one guy that I know, I mean, he fucked, dude, he was making it for other people, and literally just, they call it a test booster, but it had Ostarine in it. And you're like, bro, like, come on, man.
Let me ask you a question. Now, these guys that have gotten arrested or had raids or whatever, Well, these guys were all running their businesses kind of like they were just legitimate businesses over the table, U.S. bank accounts, right? They weren't managing or running their businesses say the way a steroid dealer would, where a steroid dealer is trying to keep off the radar and not trying to
Yeah, I mean, like for
put
the
put his
most part,
income over
those
the
guys are
table. Is that
all
how it was?
they're doing it like kind of in plain sight. I mean, you have like companies like the guys who are making dark energy. I mean, bro, DMAA has been banned for a long time. Like that's not a new ban. Like dude, that's been banned for a long
Yeah,
time.
they got it
And
way
this
back
dude
then.
was just fucking all over the internet. You know what I mean? Comment that 10,000 comments on a Facebook advertisement. Like, and it's DMAA. Like, I think the shit's terrible, honestly. It's like the worst stimulant I've ever had. I don't understand the why people get so like dick hard about it. But like, dude, I mean, it's literally like Jared Wheat from High Tech literally went to prison for it. I think he did 10 months. And you're like, bro, and like they're just out in the open. You know what I mean? And a lot of the times that's because, I mean, sometimes Fed boys are just going to give you enough rope to hang yourself with it. And I don't know exactly what happened with them, but I know they disappeared. Like, down to they
Yeah, there
completely
are a lot
shut.
of indictments and stuff that don't see the light of day because they resolve it quietly behind doors. There's a lot of shit that goes on that never makes it places where you and I can read it because it's kept. I don't know how that works, but I've seen it. I've seen it a lot. Like people that you kind of hear through the back door got busted, went away, but you never see an article about them anywhere.
Sometimes it depends on whether you know what I mean. They roll. Sometimes it depends on whether or not they you know what I mean, decide to hand over everything willy nilly and just they're like, listen, you know what I mean. I remember I was 19 years old and I had just gotten off probation.
They go skipping around and they get all these other guys. Some of these articles I read, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this guy is, and he's being made to hand over $3.2 million for selling SARMs, and I never fucking heard of this guy.
It could be as simple as like, you know what I mean. They're just not done building their case. Like sometimes, like you look at guys. I mean, your big names. Look at that movie, The Departed, Jack Nicholson. They were like, he's an FBI informant, blah blah blah. They're like, we're not trying to take him down for. They're not trying to take guys down for money laundering transaction, or they're not trying to take them down for, you know what I mean, like minor possession or POWID with, you know what I mean, 500 grams of rad, 500 grams of fucking YK. They're trying to get you in the whole organization and the distributor. You know what I mean? And my guess is with a guy that's that big, I don't know. I don't know any. I literally don't know the guy at all. I don't know anything about his company or anything like that. But my guess is when you have somebody that's like pretty big, they're not just going to go after you with some little shit. They probably want to build their case and be like, you know what I mean, take his feet out from underneath him. So when this, because when you got a guy who's super public, he's got a big personality and a big following. If they
Guy makes
build a
great
shitty,
content, man. I follow
yeah, I
his
mean,
Instagram. Makes
if
great
you got
content.
if you build a shitty case against a guy like that, it's gonna make the government look stupid, and that's the last thing that they want. They don't want to look dumb on camera. So my guess is, without knowing anything about that, is scenarios like that they're waiting to get all their ducks in a row, and then all of a sudden that's all you hear. You know what I mean? It's over.
What,
I mean, some of them dudes are fucking reckless, man. And like, I I I always liked the guys from Redfit, but like, I mean, the year that they gave away a Corvette at the Arnold, like, I mean, and 6 months later, you know, their facility goes under, and I'm like, ugh, like sometimes you look at stuff like that, and you're like, bro, I mean, if you're
So
like,
they gave away a Corvette at the Arnold under their Metfit brand, where people obviously knew they were selling SARMs. Is that, I mean, that's what they did, or did they
yeah,
use
bro, like
like a
that's
side
wild.
brand or some kind? Yeah, see that's a you're just rubbing it
Just
in.
right in their
Yeah,
face. Like,
like 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 Biggie said, federal agents mad because I'm fragrant. It's
yeah,
just, it's just rubbing it in their fucking face that you're making all this money and you have this connection to the public.
yeah. I mean, that's why you hear about dudes that like that do stuff like that, and they're out in the open. You know, they're, I mean, you're putting a target on your back for
So
one.
you think you don't think any of these guys will do jail time? You think they're just going to have to fork some money over and call it a day?
I don't think they look at it. I don't think the government, for the most part, really looks at it as like, they look at it as you're a danger to the public, but I don't think, I think I've never been in the room. I've never had a scenario where, you know what I mean? I got in trouble as a kid. It was for dumb stuff. But my guess is when they're sitting there and you're looking at everything they got you for, and they're looking at a bank account with 7, 8 figures in it, and they're like, well, you know what I mean? How do you want this to end? And you're like, well, I would prefer not to go to jail. And like sometimes they'll be like, all right, well, we're gonna fine you into non-existence, and you're gonna have to hand over X, Y, and Z, and you know what I mean, sign this plea deal, and you can go home. And you're like, all right, like I don't think that they look at it in the same way of like, um, judging by the sentences that I've seen get handed out. I don't think they look at it in the same way that they do like a heroin dealer or a cocaine dealer or something like that, where people
Well, it's
literally
not
die.
scheduled yet. I mean, they're
Yeah.
they're they're enforcing, they're flexing, but it's really not scheduled.
Yeah. So like I don't think that they're really gonna jam people up like that, when they could easily just, you know what I mean, take your shit.
I think for most of these guys, from what I've seen, at best is a introducing misbranded drugs into commerce a case, not
Yeah.
cocaine. You know, it's introducing misbranded drugs, which I mean, it's a not as big or as serious of a case as it's moving some
Yeah.
scheduled stuff.
Yeah. Which is like it's one of them things like I I mean I would prefer them not be nobody getting in trouble for it at all, honestly. But like, I mean, compared to the latter where you get certain countries where you get caught with, you know what I mean? Certain, I think you were telling me about Colombia, how like certain like things are very strict down there. I'm not really sure. I vaguely remember
There's
you
a
telling
shit
me
ton
that.
of like every third world country is a shit ton of laws, just nobody pays attention to them. Nobody,
Yeah,
and a lot of the enforcement, a lot of the agents and officers don't even really fully understand the law themselves a lot of the times.
yeah, they're just making shit up as they go on. I know in like Russia, like if you get caught with like a personal possession amount of like an opiate, like heroin, like bro, you can do like 5 years in jail. Where here, they just throw it out and tell you to leave. You know, you go down to Baltimore and you know what I mean? They literally like they pull you over with $200 to $500 worth of heroin in your car. They're literally just gonna throw it out and like tell you to leave. Like, cause they got people getting murdered 3 times a day. Like, and I think that probably is the same thing in our category where you got people who, you know what I mean, they're like, all right, well, we got this. Let's take your shit, move along. You know what I mean? It
Even
probably,
as an example, in Colombia, which is a little bit weird, this will never happen. But let's say if the laws in the books were sort of being followed, if you get caught with an amp of testosterone, Bayer testosterone or Bayer Nebido in your pocket, and you don't, or you never quite got a script, you could kind of get in trouble for it according to laws in the books. Now, if you get caught with the same amount of testosterone, but is in a multi-dose vial that doesn't have a label on it, it wasn't an approved drug, you're kind of okay. Like we've proved this drug for prescription only. If you have it without prescription, then you could get in trouble. But if you have the same drug and it's not the Bayer version, it's not the official version, it's just testosterone in a vial, then there's kind of nothing in the laws to really kind of fuck you up over it, which is weird, but it's kind of the way it plays out. The laws, and talking specifically about Colombia, it's funny.
yeah.
That's
And I think a lot of the guys that like they get hemmed up here in the United States, I think a lot of their sentence also depends on like what they were doing with it too. You know what I mean? Like if you were just selling chems or something like that. I know chem sites have been up for 15 years. You know what I mean? Like they've been up forever. Um, and I really think it matters. Like you got, like I said, like dudes that are passing things off as other drugs, like you know what I mean, spike and shit, or you got people that'll, you know what I mean, just put it in like a test booster and tell you that it's healthy, you know what I mean, and it'd be cut with ostarine, shit like that. I think those guys are going to probably get more of the hammer than somebody who is just selling chems, you know what I mean, or raw powder. Because
See, that's
nobody.
interesting because the chems are actual drugs that you'd find at a pharmacy.
Mhm.
So you think selling chems like the research chems guys selling Nova and Cialis and Viagra and all that, you think they're in less danger than some of the guys selling SARMs, huh?
I think you cut out a little bit.
I was saying, so you think that that the guys selling the research chems, the Nova and the Cia and the Aroma and all that stuff, Liquidex, you think those guys are in less danger, less exposed than the guys selling SARMs under today's climate?
No, I'm just thinking more along the lines of like, I mean, all that category I think could be lumped together, but I'm thinking more along the lines of like guys who sell SARMs and stuff like that in like the chem form, like liquid, you know what I mean, based in alcohol, as opposed to like an encapsulated or flavored powder. I think when you make things like dark energy, they put the label research facts on it, but bro, it's not a research, you know, it's gummy worms flavored and it's a pre-workout ingredient. It's not a single ingredient. Like if you're buying dark energy, you think you're buying a pre-workout, but it's got DMA in it. But somebody at the gym tells you it's strong. It's not like if you buy a chem off the site and you get it and it says not for human consumption and it only has one ingredient in it and it has no instructions, or you got to know what you're taking. No standard person is going to just go on a chem site, Bitcoin some money, and like get a package in the mail a week later and like look at that and be like, oh yeah, this seems safe. You know what I mean? As opposed to somebody who just goes to, you know, like a supplement store or on eBay and just
I get that. I get that the unsuspecting customer angle.
yeah,
I get
which
that. Yeah.
which is where I do agree. You know what I mean? And it sucks as again like my
Okay, so
position
so
on
here's a question: the guys that you've seen get busted up, did they have their SARMs in capsules and in bottles like a supplement, or were they doing the liquid thing with the Research Cam website?
most of the guys that I saw got hurt hard were the ones that they were encapsulated or flavored powders. Um, it seems like those were the ones they went after first, and the guys that were putting it in other ingredients like SARM base. I saw SARM based pre workouts, um, SARM test boosters, muscle builders, weight loss, fat burners with SARMs in it. You know what I mean? Shit like that. I think those are the ones that I saw that got hemmed up a little bit harder. And you really can't make that argument. It's a much more difficult in court to say that I was selling a raw ingredient as an ingredient to somebody as opposed to, yeah, it was gummy worms flavored and it had 6 grams of citrulline in it. Like it kind of
Yeah,
creates it
yeah,
makes you look like a dumbass like in court.
yeah.
Like,
Different situation for sure.
yeah. So I would say that like those guys are the ones that they're gonna get hemmed up harder than the other dudes. And like personal opinion, you know what I mean? As opposed to just the actual act of doing it is probably not as bad, depending on, you know what I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
how you're.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes some sense for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Where's the honor? You know, I look at it. I look at it like that. Like, you know, I mean, we all know parts of this industry, and I'm like, where's the honor though? You know what I mean? Like, are you just tricking people? To me, it's kind of fucked up. Like, uh, and if you get everybody knows the risk associated with that, you know, I mean, section of the industry. So I'm like, I mean, if you're willing to take that risk, that's cool. But like, are you even going to do it with like any sort of integrity? You know what I mean? I mean, you can call that side of the industry. You can have integrity, in my belief, in that side of the industry.
Well,
But
I
like,
mean, I agree. There's a completely different thing when you have these research cams, these SARMs or drugs, whatever the fuck, and you're dealing with a meathead, a bodybuilder that's informed, that knows all about it, that knows the dangers, that knows everything, and he's dealing with you one to one. I can see that as opposed to someone dealing, say, with with a newbie, a new guy that doesn't know much of shit, and you're leading them towards taking something like GW or Osterin or even a pro hormone for for something that they probably should start off with a diet and training, and maybe should get talked out of PEDs as an option so early on. And I do see I do see a big difference there, and I'm kind of with you there. Like, yeah, those guys were just putting SARMs, putting drugs basically in along with other supplement ingredients and kind of selling to newbies. That's kind of scumbaggish. You're not fucking telling that person that there's a synthetic drug in there and it's new and we don't quite know what the side effects of it will be later. I mean, it's just, this is a whole kind of information that anybody should know before they go and deal something. But look, once somebody knows the information, once somebody understands the risks, if they're old enough, if they're an adult, fuck, they should be able to buy and do whatever they want with their bodies for sure.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a big difference between a flavor powder that any Tom, Dick, or Harry could purchase thinking they're getting some other thing, and then somebody going on some dark web fucking internet chem site and going through the 10-step process to send money to somebody. You know what you're signing up for when you do that, because you get anybody that's a newbie, somebody tells them about, I mean, Osterine or GW or something like that, and they go to buy it, and then they have to go through the process. If they're a newbie and they don't understand, like, you know what I mean, what they're getting into, they're going to abandon the checkout, right away. They're going to be like, dude, I'm not sending Bitcoin to some stranger. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
sending
yeah.
fucking Venmo to a, you know what I mean, to this person or that person. I'm good. Like, I use a credit card? Well, because you're buying drugs. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
you fucking dummy. Like, I remember people be like, well, yeah, I hear it, and they're like, you have to go through all these processes. And I'm like, yeah, bro. Like, if you got to ask why, you ain't ready for it. Like you ain't.
Yeah, I do agree with that part, and I think that is cool. That is not as accessible to newbies, and yeah, the harder process of paying for some of these items makes people research more into them, which I think it's a great thing. I think, yeah, man, it's I'm always in the middle there as well myself. Like, I don't think any of this stuff should be illegal. I don't think people should be put in jail for taking performance enhancement drugs, especially guys that are not in competition. But at the same time, I'm against companies and people just giving shit to unsuspecting folks, giving people things that they're not fully aware what the situation is. I think the seller is got some serious responsibility there. So I'm kind of in the middle. It's kind of like, all right, depending on how it's done and how that the purchase is handled is where I think something was wrong about it or not. And definitely having an informed customer base is all right. Sell them whatever the fuck they want, as long as they know the dangers. It should be good.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. That's the same way I think about it. Like,
What do you
if
think is the
you're willing
timeline on
to
this?
understand the risk associated, and there's a little bit more of a barrier, but it's still available, then yeah, sure. You know what I mean? But it's prevented the kid from, the unsuspecting single mom that some dumbass told her that she should be taking this. You know what I mean? Like, let's avoid that and let it for people who actually know what they're getting into.
In your best guess, what do you think is the timeline before the government does something really serious? Well, they're already raiding motherfuckers and taking their money, right? But I mean, any steps as far as legislation goes, any big changes in the laws in regards to SARMs go, what do you think your best guess is on a timeline for that?
I'm actually looking. I'm trying to pull it up right now. I know that there was um, a bill that got introduced. Um, I don't introduced in 2019 again. Then COVID hit. It doesn't look like it's gone anywhere. Um, Latest action. I mean, it's basically been sitting in Congress. Um, so who knows? You know what I mean? Um, and I know I'm looking at the list right now, and it says Austrian LGD, um, uh, Looks like different forms of hexadrone. I don't see. I don't think GW or MK are on there on the SARMS Control Act. Um, right now, it's
That's
looking like
interesting. That's
it's
interesting.
Osterine, LGD.
Well, GW is not really a SARM. It
Yeah,
gets lumped in, but it's really not. But it's interesting that people putting together legislature would even know that, because out
Rad
of all the
13
out
is
of
on
everything you
here.
mentioned,
S4 is on here.
GW is more popular than any of
S23
those.
is on here. MK, GW. Um, they're
Also,
not on it.
GW isn't the isn't that bill?
No, it's not on here. No,
It's
MK
not.
and GW aren't. It's Osterine, LGD, S4, um, Rad, uh, LGD 121. I don't even know what the hell that is. S23. Looks like those are the ones that are on here. But yeah, GW um, and MK aren't.
It's pretty interesting to me that they would understand the science behind it that well. I mean, it's interesting because yeah, I mean, GW is not really a SARM.
Yeah,
You
neither
know?
is MK.
MK 677, not a SARM either. The fact that they in the bill they understood that's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And,
I mean they
and that
probably.
is and this bill is to make them to schedule them to make them basically like crack.
Yep, yep. It'll be to amend the Controlled Substances Act to effectively regulate selective androgen receptor modulators and for other purposes. Um, but it doesn't say. It doesn't look like it's gone anywhere. I'm sure that. I mean
So
the beer
so so,
virus.
so the fat lady's in the building, but she hasn't opened her mouth yet. Basically,
No, I think they got other problems to worry
fat
about
lady
right.
hasn't sang yet. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think I got bigger issues on the tape right now. Which as soon as like I mean everything happened last year, I was like, looks like we got another year.
Yeah,
Because I
interesting.
got other shit. There's some bigger issues at hand right now. They're trying to. I mean, they got they got things that are a little bit more socially um, pertinent right now. Things that people are a little bit more pissed off about, rather than banning S4.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, S4 is all but gone now, just because of the raw materials to make it aren't really available. So, from what I've been hearing, S4 is very scarce right now.
Yeah, China actually banned the export of it. Um, so to get S4 out, my understanding is they have to ship it out like they would, you know what I mean, any other analog for, you know what I mean, fentanyl or methamphetamines and stuff like that. And in all reality, like if you're gonna get hit by the Chinese government hard like you would for shipping out fentanyl, why wouldn't you just ship out fentanyl? Why would you ship out S4? You know, if you're gonna take a risk for something, like S4 is not that. If you're gonna get charged the same way, why would you take a risk on something that doesn't have as much of a profit margin as you could just making real drugs? You know what I mean? That's what I look
Makes
at.
sense. Yeah, makes sense. Just like when you telling me the story of the guy who was getting Superdrol into the country to then ship it out. It's crazy because once the Superdrol is in the country, it's probably more expensive or more profitable in the US than selling it
Yeah.
anywhere in the world because it's illegal here. So that's just the fact that somebody would import it where a country was real expensive and make it and then probably export to a country where it's not as expensive. I thought just that story you told me earlier, I thought that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you just do it with like because it's already controlled substance. It's on the same category as like D-ball or you know what I mean, anadrol or testosterone and stuff like that. Why wouldn't you just do that? It's probably a better margin on it.
Yeah, I mean it's Superdrol is cheap anywhere outside of the US. Once you get it into the US, it's really expensive here, because of the black market tax. So to then make it and then ship it out to another country where it's probably not as expensive, that's funny. Because I mean you can still it's not Superdrol is not illegal in like the UK or Australia, some of these places. There's laws around it, but you're not specifically going to jail for having a bottle of it. But
Yeah.
But here in the US, I mean, you got a bottle of super draw, it's like you had a bottle of crack, you're going to jail. Someone's going
Yeah.
to jail over it.
Yeah. So I don't understand why he did it. Obviously, it was a poor decision on his part, but to me, it doesn't seem like worth it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you're gonna take a risk, you should take a risk with something that's a little bit more profitable.
Yeah, I mean, I some guys are really out there, man. I used to get some really crazy Facebook ads for companies selling SARMs.
Yeah.
And I always thought, I'm almost looking at it like, wow, this is like, if you run a Facebook ad, you're gonna run into some kids, and you're gonna run into some people that probably shouldn't be using this stuff. There's a big long commercial with these two kind of Hawaiian looking cats, and one of them was jogging, and then they bump into each other, and then that guy brings him to the gym. I mean, real crazy stuff. And there's another one, I think it was Narrows or something.
Yeah.
This like this cat. I can't remember his name, but he sounded like a little bit of a Chicano accent. Like, yeah, Chewy was his name. Hey, this is Chewy from Narrows Labs. Sound like Cheech and Chong a little bit. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, dude, like this is on fucking Facebook that I'm getting an ad for your SARMs, kind of like. I think the hammer's gonna have to come down, because people are too fragrant, too brazen. The hammer is gonna have to come down on this whole thing, because it's just got to be way too much, I think. And a lot of guys making money and flaunting it, which is another issue. I mean, you telling me about these guys giving away a Corvette at a fucking bodybuilding show. That's just rubbing it in everybody's face that you are making money with this popular brand. Probably not the best way to operate, right?
Yeah. And Narrows, I just pulled up their site. They're done. I mean, they have regular supplements on here, but they don't do. My understanding is they got their SARM side got rated. Narrows is
Rated or a letter? I seen an interview where the owner or the guy who's on all these videos spoke about it, and I think the way he put it, it sounds like they just got some letters, and he thought that was it. So did they actually get rated, and he didn't really disclose
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if he was, I look at it this way. Usually these guys, they're not going to just kick your door in. They're probably going to tell you to fucking quit it. You know what I mean? First. And if they got that first letter and they quit and they left the casino with their chips, cashed them in, good for them. Bro, like if that's what he did, and he just checked out and was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, got my warning, I'm out. But like, you got guys who they ignore the warnings. They don't send them for no reason. You know what I mean? They're giving them to you as like a courtesy. You know what I mean? And seeing whether or not like you're going to be, you know what I mean? You're going to be cooperative.
You're going to comply right away. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
many guys,
like
many guys found out
what you're doing.
Many guys found out they were in trouble just because the Fed showed up. I mean, many guys found out they were in trouble because the agents showed up. So the fact that if Narrows Labs did get a letter, that was very fortunate on their end.
Yeah, especially because they were a big lab. You know what I mean? That's not even like they're not even like.
Oh yeah, joke. They had Facebook ads. They had these commercials. Yeah. I think he said he opened a TRT clinic too. I mean, because now it's become real easy to open TRT clinics. I think he opened one up too. I mean, it's some guys are getting letters, some guys are getting rated. But like you said, you get a letter, it's just like, hey, take your money and go home. It's probably the most fortunate thing that could happen to someone is getting a letter. And I guess it even makes you wonder, like, so who's better off, the guy doing the research chem side, who's kind of not being very visible and not allowing to be tracked back. Well, he'll never get the letter. If they wanted to send him a letter, he might not get it, because that's the way he structured his business, and it'll cost him to step up enforcement. Or just the guy who's doing everything over the table, and he gets the letter and he knows it's time to stop. So that's also an interesting way to look at it.
yeah, that makes the most sense to me. You know what I mean? Um, it, if you can take your shit and leave the casino and go take that and invest it into, I mean, another over the counter profitable above the counter kind of industry, like a TRT clinic, or you know what I mean. A lot of those guys get into supplement brands and stuff like that. I mean, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, you should. Like, if you're smart and decide to, you know, go that route. I don't understand the guys that like they get a warning and keep going. If they're nice enough to give you a courtesy, you should kind of be like, got you. You know what I mean? Thanks, bud. I'm cool. I'm out. Throw it all out right now. It's like I mean, you look at Singerman and PJ, and they got that letter, and then they hit it. I don't know how much you know about that situation, but
Let's talk
they,
about it. So they were selling SARMs and they got a letter to cut it out. Did they cut it out right away? Did they keep doing it?
no, they. My understanding is, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. Is that they were selling a dietary supplement that had either a SARM or a prohormone in it. I think it was DMZ. Um, and they yeah, the FDA was like, hey, I know you have $200,000 worth of product. Destroy it. Tell all your retailers to destroy theirs. That's it. And then they moved it from their facility to another facility and then tried to wholesale it out to retail stores. And they got caught. That's
Ah,
that's my understanding is they were like, yeah, we'll destroy it. Wink, wink. You know what I mean? And then we're like, no, we're going to flip this shit. We're not going to eat 200 grand. Well, then 3 years later, they get papers in the mail. Like, I mean,
yeah.
if they,
Sometimes these cases take years before they come after you and get you.
yeah. So, I mean, it's again, like, if, 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 if they're nice enough to tell you throw it out, they're already watching. You know what I mean? They know how much you have. We live in a digital age. Like, they're not they're not dumb. Like, people might think that they're dumb, but like, there's probably an agent assigned to your case, and his full-time job is to follow you around, either personally or digitally, and they're well aware of what you got going on. So if they tell you to dump it, like, dump it. Like, so a buddy of mine owns his grandfather owns a beer distributor, like a big beer distributor, not like a little case store. Like, they own like they supply beer distributors and bars for like 100-mile radius from here. It's a monstrous facility, and they were one of the wholesale the distributors, like a Muscle Foods type company for for Loco Energy, that the beer that had caffeine in it. And he said that
Yeah, for
when
local, I've heard all about for local. There's a little cousin of mine's up in Canada that had to go to emergency room for drinking for local.
yeah, this shit is garbage. But like, it's an alcohol that had a shitload of stimulants in it, so people were drinking it and getting sick. So when they made that illegal, they got a call from the ATF, and they actually they came in and they tagged all their pallets, and they said on this day, when this bill goes through, however many days from now, whatever you haven't sold needs to be packed up, photographed, tagged, and our trucks will come and pick it up and dispose of it. And I was like, it was that serious? He was like, it was that serious. We had to tag every item. We had to take pictures of every item, exact amounts. We had to submit all our documents. And he was like, and put it on a truck that was then counted by somebody else and disposed of. He was like, bro, if we would have tried to hide one can, he's like, we would have gotten in trouble for it. He's like, so we just had to eat it. And I was like, you know what I mean? That is what it is. But it's like one of them things, like, they told him, all right, you're fucking done. And he was like, cool, we're fucking done. Like, that's the way I look at it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Just be,
if they're nice enough to give you a warning, might as well heed it. You know, that's why bodybuilding.com got rated. Apparently, the story goes that they got a bunch of letters, and before they got rated back in the day over pro hormones. But yeah, it's a lot of places get those letters, and they just don't. They're not diligent. They think they're playing around.
yeah.
Good deal,
Um,
man. So yeah, my man. So nice long podcast today, man. I'm neat to have you back on here, dude. Yeah, definitely want to get more into details as far as opening up a store, making it successful. Maybe next time we talk, there'll be some more developments on the SARM issue and on that bill, and we'll know where we stand. So definitely like to have you back on here, man. It was very, very good information today, brother. I really appreciate it.
yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's cool to do a podcast. I'm meaning, I'm actually in my new store in Lancaster. I'm building a content studio because my current office is like renovated space and it's kind of janky. And my new office is going to be with a full podcast setup, and I want to be able to have the idea for this store and the space in general is to have like pros, guys come out and do good content. And my focus over the next year is going to be solely on creating better content, honestly, because I'll have more time because I won't be standing in front of a register or anything like that. Train other people to help with the online stuff. I'm thoroughly looking forward to doing stuff like that. I think it's good. It's good for the industry. You know what I mean? Soon I'll have your stuff on my site. I've been building out the new system to sync everything that's in store, like the N2 garden shit, to put that on my website. So, and we're expanding that whole site and then doing a monstrous advertising campaign.
Throw some plugs out there for people locally where they can come out and see you. Websites that you're promoting. Just throw some
Yeah.
plugs out for the people.
So if you live in the central Pennsylvania area, I have a store. It's the House of Gains Fitness Outlet. It's located on off Mount Rose Avenue in New York. You can find us at houseofgains.com. If there's certain products that you might that might not be on the website that we carry in store that you saw on one of our Instagram accounts, feel free to DM us. We'll arrange for payment and shipping and everything. I own tons of different products. Some that are actually really good. I made a product called Cramp X2, which is really good for guys on gear who have issues with holding electrolytes. It's literally encapsulated, and I have a powdered version that's loaded with dextrose and magnesium. It's kind of like a powdered Pedialyte that's much higher dose. And literally, like, I sent a container of that out to a friend of mine. His name's Big Slank, out in Vegas, a big boy, and he said he was having a lat cramp, and he's in prep, and took a scoop of that. Literally, his cramp went away immediately, like within 5 minutes.
Nice.
It went away, and that's actually why I designed the product. Was for athletes and dudes who have issues holding their electrolytes properly, because it's a big problem of mine. You get done a heavy session in the midst of a heavy cycle, and you know what it means. You're drinking a gallon of water, 2 gallons a day. You're pissing out all your salt, your magnesium, and your potassium. So this is a product that was directly made for those guys specifically.
That's badass. That's cool. That's cool as shit. Yeah, some of these are real boutique items for guys in our market that have very specific special needs. What you're describing, a lot of guys coming up to show, show prepping will have some issues with electrolytes and stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll shoot you some information after we get off, and maybe we can figure something out there to get that in front of some of the guys that follow you in the blogs and stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Definitely. Well, Matt, great day today, man. Appreciate you coming on. Let's do this again. Let's talk a little bit more about stores and a little bit more about steroids. We didn't talk about steroid cycles today, and I think that'd be a good one for the next podcast. So, we'll text after we're done, and we'll get something going again the next couple of weeks here, next month or so.
Awesome, man. It was a pleasure.
Hey, man. Thank you for coming on. Have a good day, brother.